How do you personally shape and reinforce the culture in your organization?
Culture has been a very big and very important role for Saffron.
Drive Saffron Tech in one word.
Change.
I always say that I think you need to have growth in your life. What's your plan? What are you thinking? Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast series, The Culture Beat by Incredible Workplaces. Today, we have Vibhu with us from Saffron Tech, and we are going to talk about the journey of Saffron, his experience, and the journey of building the culture of a mid-sized organization. So first of all, welcome Vibhu to the show.
Thank you.
And congratulations on being Incredible Workplace Certified Gold certification.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with your journey as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure it might be a roller coaster itself. So let's start with your journey about Saffron Tech, so that our audience is able to connect with that.
Sure. My family comes from a services background, so nobody has done any kind of business. And I studied engineering. At that time, parents used to force and tell kids what to do. So I'm from that category of people. And my father always wanted me to do engineering, and he always wanted me to study abroad. So I went outside, studied in London for a good couple of years, did my post graduations as well, and worked for a couple of years there. And I realized there's a huge opportunity to build businesses in India. And I was helping few businesses in India to grow, and was able to, because of the engineering background, software was doing fantastic. I went in and consulted few companies. And when I came back for a couple of months back to India, I realized that, there is something that I could do for myself. And that is where I and my co-founder, Gaurav, reunited and said, let's start a software development company. I was from an engineering background, Gaurav was from finance. I still remember I used to code in the night. Gaurav used to write content, and we set up our first website. And that is how the entire journey started. We started as a software development company, and we then transitioned now into a mix of a marketing technology company, which is doing more marketing and using technology to market various clients that we have.
Mhm.
So that's a small journey of ours. It all started with a little effort as a student, and then getting into businesses, and now the journey has been fantastic for all of us.
Awesome. I think there are many few who actually try to start the entrepreneurship journey immediately after the college, because, and I think it's the best time if somebody has to start entrepreneurship journey, because they're less on the stake as opposed to somebody coming from a corporate and trying to start something at their own. As I said, there are always a roller coaster in the way you go, and I know that from two of you to now at least more than 100 employees in Saffron Tech, there is always a lot of changes that happens, and there are a lot of changes happens from a culture perspective also. In my conversations with many other CEOs of the organizations, I felt that they always believed in the beginning that culture is never the thing that they always keep in mind. It is most probably the sustainability of the business, right? And I think the culture things comes in the picture when you are seeing a growth, and that now it is becoming more than that you can choose. So you have to build the culture element in it. So let me ask you from the Saffron perspective. So as a CEO, how do you personally shape and reinforce the culture in your organization? Or maybe you can tell me even the story from like how did you saw that? Is there any change the way you used to think about culture before and thinking about it now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, culture has been a very big and very important role for Saffron. And we did not know about culture, how to shape it. I think we realized when we were about 41 people that we needed an outside intervention, because I do not come from a background where I knew how to shape culture, and we hired a consultant who was very helpful, and they were shaping the culture of how it was. But there was, and in fact, a culture already. The the culture that we plot in as our personalities, which includes tremendous transparency, respect for each other, a very client-centric focus has been part of our culture from the beginning, and it still remains there. So everything that we want to do till now has these three main values. But while you say there's a roller coaster, the transition of how humans change during time, it happens same with the companies as well. And with us, they were up and down, the up and down areas where we had to shift ourselves. We had to be open. And one of the important things that I especially do is I read a lot. I look at other companies which are something which I want our company to be, and we kind of imitate from them and try to become them. While doing that, we have our own version of them. You can't completely be them or copy them, but I think a lot of companies have been into it. Sure. For innovation, we have Apple. For heroism, we have Nike. So we started to embody some of those things within Saffron. And we're at a point where the culture is shifting, and it is only because of the team and the leadership that you have. Because once you get to a point where you want to shift in that culture of the team, there needs to be a united front of everybody to realize that this is what you want. You intend, you start shifting culture. But those three things that I said have been part of Saffron diversities. And we love that. And that is going to be core part of Saffron, for sure.
The one thing you just mentioned about that, your motivation, that you took some motivation from other organization, and it is very natural actually, because whether it is culture or any new thing that any business leader is trying to implement a organization, they always tend to look at either the books or maybe internet to find out what are the best practices out there. But at the same time, right, culture is very personal, right? Whether it is your family, whether it is your country, or it is your company, right? It's very personal. And there are two things. One, I totally believe that there will be a element of how founders want that culture to be built. That's always be there. And second, I think it cannot necessarily be, taken from. We can of course get motivated from other cultures. So, in your opinion, the culture that you see or you are seeing today, because that also, time to time you have to change the way the culture depending upon how big you are. Do you see that you would like to get more from the cultures that you are getting motivated from, or you want to build something of your own?
I think it's going to be hybrid. I firmly believe that you should take good things from others, whichever shape or form that company is going. If that motivates you and inspires you to take, you should take all the good things from them and create your own version of it. To give you an example, we want to build something innovative. Now, what we do is internally we find people who have their aspirations and try to communicate through them of how and new things that we are bringing into a company. And like I said, we're very transparent. And by being transparent, we also allow people to fail. So once we allow that kind of a culture, I think we can always tweak and manage them well. But to answer your question, it's going to be a hybrid for sure. And we should always be aspiring to something which is not easy to achieve. So some of the things that we are right now discussing internally are something which we want us to be in the next 3-4 years. And I'm sure those things are going to be very sustainable and will help us grow. And culture makes a huge impact for decision making as well. So whenever my team does ask me about certain questions, and we build a culture that they know how would I decide or how they should decide. So I think that it doesn't then become a model that people know how culturally we will decide certain things, and I think that is That's the biggest impact of culture.
Yeah, and I would say that the stage at Saffron Tech is thinking about culture, right? How many employees we have? Roughly 130 or
Yeah.
130. There are very few organizations, by the way, who start thinking about culture at this point in time. Normally, they have culture, of course, they have values, they have culture, but they're mostly the priority is to make sure that they are profitable and maybe thinking about investors. But at the same time, I think thinking about culture is very rare at this point in time. One of the CEO that I work with and I admire the most, and in one of my conversation with him, he said, Govind, that I think we need to start thinking about future. And if you're growing, you start thinking about future, start making ourselves ready for that now, because there are things that will take some time to go through there. And he gave me an example of that, Vibhu, and he said, when I was a 10 people company, he actually formed a board. And he said that that point in time, the board was not a legal CUS company.
Yeah.
The board was not a legal obligation for me to, because I was small in that side. But I still formed a board because I wanted to make sure that the board members are able to ask the right questions to me. Because I'm the CEO of the company, nobody's going to ask questions to me.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I've been also questioned and I'm answerable to the board. Otherwise, I'll do what I want to do and I don't know whether it's right or wrong. And I think that's the vision that point in time he was projecting, and I could connect with that. And you have correctly said that culture is something I think it takes a lot of efforts to build in, because it's not about the changing you as an individual. It's about changing the whole organization, and also the new people who are coming in that particular culture is also important. And you also mentioned about that you start thinking about it when you had a 40 people company.
Yeah.
But was that a trigger, or was there anything else that you realized that man, I need a culture? That's not possible to do it like that, right? Is there anything, or was it the 40 employee mark that triggered you to start thinking more?
I mean, it's a good question. What triggered us was that we were very fortunate to have very noble mentors who thought exactly like the example that you gave. There were a few people who got into really minute details of software, and they asked similar question. I think that also triggered us because they were coming from companies which do billions of dollars of revenue, and they could see us grow, and they wanted us to maintain that growth, sustain that growth to a good extent. And I think that also triggered us. So we had a couple of mentors. We didn't create a board. That's something that we're thinking right now. By end of next year, I'm expecting to have few people officially, be part of the board. But we had great noble mentors who came in and helped us to create that initial understanding of culture. So 40 was a number where we wanted a lot of decision making to happen very smoothly, and we had these mentors who were continuously talking to us about culture, because they have seen that distinction when you have a great culture, whereas there is sustainable growth. So I think that is what triggered us.
Awesome. And I love the example that you gave and your story of having mentors supporting you to take a decision. And a lot of my audience who must be listening to me, and they hear that from me many a times, that I always say that I think you need to have gurus in your life, right? Not the gurus that you have done in your, I'm using the word gurus specifically because I think guru goes beyond a teacher, right? It is somebody, it's a mentor, it's a coach, it's a godfather, whatever way you want to tell it. Somebody who can honestly tell you what it is, and not forcing the decisions on you, but telling you in a way that you start thinking yourself and take those decisions, because I think you as an individual knows that better. And I always say that gone are the days when you used to have only one Dronacharya. We should have a multiple. Right? So depending upon what do you want to build. If you're an entrepreneur, you are looking for investors in the company, you find Dronacharya who can tell you how to find investors. So how to prepare your company to get, or you want to be a public listed company, or you wanted to change the culture, or whatever you want to do. There are a lot of Dronacharyas that you can definitely leverage from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a great example. And now talking about that, I think in my previous interactions with you, you're also thinking about how to transform the digital marketing to something that is more connected with technology and artificial intelligence, which means that there is a growth, there is a scale that Saffron is looking forward to. Now, one side, you are looking for a growth that is a very tough job to do in the current tough market itself. And also building the culture, not only building the culture, but also trying to see how the culture will transform and the growth will come. Now, today 130, tomorrow 500, the way the culture has to shift is going to be very, very, drastic. What's your plan? What are you thinking that with this scale that you are going into right now, you will be able to preserve the culture or maybe at least be agile in also the culture? What's your thoughts? What's going on right now?
One of the culture that we want to begin is the agility, like you said, and with the times right now, I keep on giving this example to my team, and they hate it.
They're going to listen it after that.
So I give them an example, and I've done it in Calpod, is of a wolf and a fox.
Yeah.
Wolf is the one who has his pride and is hunting, and a fox is the clever one who keeps on changing. I think we're at a time of the moment where everyone as an individual, as a team, or as a company need to be agile, be that sharp fox, and make changes as the weather permits. If it's too snowy, you need to probably hide or reserve food for the next couple of months. Yeah, you have to plan. So I think agility is going to be one of the most important factors, and we want to create that more and more. And looking at the next couple of years, there is going to be a lot of change. So the prediction of the next couple of years is very tough right now of how businesses are going. But if you have a culture to accept changes and iterate new things which are coming your way, I think there is a huge scope for you to do really well, for sure. So that is something that we are doing. And like you said about mentors, we have mentors who are who would not think of us as we are owners of the company, but would actually critically look at every aspect and impact. So, and like I said, we're trying to create that board, and we have few people who are already doing this. So I'm sure with their noble thoughts and us making sure that our team and people are doing a very good job at what they do, I think that will be the biggest thing that why we're trying to grow, make sure we're a services company. So the biggest resource that we have are people. And I think culture makes such a significant impact, because without the culture, I think people don't think in ways that they should. And I also believe if you want to achieve something, you have to be that right now. So if you want to be, let's say, 5 minutes of yourself, then we have to start thinking about it that you are being that way. And then look at what is happening and make those changes. One good thing about Saffron, it is ever evolving and changing. Plus, there was a time we were changing too much, which took us down, because every 3-4 months we were changing like anything. I think that time we should have not changed much. But you got to be a fox right now and ASAP changes and so that is what we do.
Awesome. And so when we are thinking about culture, many times there's an argument that comes that is it culture something that is good to have? Is it like value addition, or is it there is an impact on the business? And that reminds me with my previous interactions and engagements with many CEOs, that culture actually gonna impact your business very, very hard, right? One is, of course, that people know that the culture is not good, people will not come, etc. But I'm remembering a story in very short. We do that. We're using an example of how culture can really impact things. And I have so many examples coming up. I'll select one, right? So one of the company had this culture called continuous improvement. So they have this culture. The thing they did is they made sure that every value they have in the culture, and continuous improvement was one of the values that they believe into. But they worked on all the values, and this was one of the values. And it was so imbibed in people that everybody need to improve continuously themselves, their team member, the work project they're working on. Everything is always continuously improving. So they have to improve. They don't have to settle with whatever they have done. And I remember there was a time, it's a tech company, there was a time when the QA manual job was going away and QA automation job was coming. And it was comparatively very easy for the company to transform their QA manuals to QA automation because the company believed in continuous improvement. And there's no pushback from the employees. And because of that value and that transformation, they were able to build their existing manual employees who have turned to automation the higher rates to their client. So now this is a direct connection of how a value, when you understood, when you imbibe those values in your people, how that will turn to a business. I would like to know from you, right, any story that you can think of where any value of yours, whether it is like you spoke about agility, or maybe client centric, or those values have helped in scoring some business, or maybe your employees have some those kind of any stories that you want to share with us.
Yeah, I think one of the most important changes we did in the last 4-5 years was to bring in a structure where everybody has their and that actually influences us a lot. So goal is something which, like one of our value Bhuja talked about was transparency. So we created very transparently where we want to reach, and we started doing these town halls to explain where we are. Every department still comes up and gives presentation of what they do. But when we shifted that entire presentation to goals that they want to reach and where they are, I think a lot of conversation started to happen within the company. And we kept it so transparent that if I want to know your performance for your goal, I can go and see it. So I believe that change impacted whoever was doing great, whoever needed help, whoever was the outliers in the company. Because sometimes when you're working so hard on your goals, you don't see what is going on within the organization, who's a great person. And I got it to see a lot of people who I do not know about excellent about their jobs, just because they weren't reporting to me and they were reporting someone else. So we were able to find the real talent and give opportunities to them. And they are still with us, and they've grown tremendously. Like we have a good number of people who stayed with us for long, and I believe one of the biggest factor in value has been the transparency and us creating these goals, which give me completely transparent. And ever since we did that, the performance of the team, the decision making has tremendously reduced. And we do this exercise a big quarter. So I think that is one of the biggest factors that we have. And also we've tied an incentive towards the goals. So we can capabilities and the ability for people to create goals. They could also align those goals towards themselves. And in fact, I'm one of the founders of a company which also its goals. So I think that thinking about 5 years back tremendously changed the way we operate.
That is a great example, like transferring being a core value and how that is cascaded in the forms of goals. I have not seen many companies who makes the goals of every visible to others. But again, a great story for media audience where if they're looking for these kind of best practices, right? I don't know how that will be possible in a organization that is that big, because when you become bigger, having access to everybody's goals, people might have obstructions, but maybe here it is something that is really working out for the organization. So it's again a best practice for the audience in case they wanted to try goals are visible to others.
Yeah. And the kind of conversations which are also good and bad habits. Why did you get better performance? Why did I think those conversations are wonderful just because then you can really talk about real stuff with people, and you get to deep understanding. And when favoritism started to show up, it's clear to people that this is what is happening. and you can go in and change it. So it has really good sides, at least to us, and some negative sides. For everything that you decide, it's always bad. But that is where real conversations start to happen, where people started to get motivated to reach their goals or make their goals bigger. I've seen people buy phones to shoes just because they were reaching these goals, and we made it completely transparent.
And that's the actually having in the organization, having conversation is always good. Like if you're able to trigger conversation among people, that is really awesome. I think the key is that how leaders and the managers of the organization are handling those conversations, because that might go to different directions. It becomes politics, and it can also become an opportunity for the management to answer those questions heads on, right? As opposed to just a grievance at the back. Awesome, great. So so another good thing we learned is making goals visible to everybody. So we spoke about Saffron journey, your journey as a person. How did you think about culture? What do you think about culture? What are some of the values that you believe that you would like to have in the culture of Saffron? Let's talk about a little bit of challenges in the journey that you are going, right? So my question to you is, what are the hardest cultural challenge that you have faced while you are in the process of scaling right now? So what are those challenges that are coming to your mind and you have already thought of that will come?
I think one challenge that we got was that we wanted to create a culture of heroism, which was from an archetype or hero archetype. And I think somewhere we decided that we wanted to do that. And for a couple of years, we were chasing that. So we actually spent a lot of good time in trying to understand it and do it. And we actually did not do a great job at it. And that has been a big challenge for us. And what we try to do is people to understand behavior culture, it's difficult. And we're now trying to modify it into a simpler version. For example, one of the cultures that we want to incorporate is mastery. And creating that in itself is going to take a huge amount of effort from all of us. Now, mastery doesn't come in a day or two. You cannot expect mastery to come in without failure. So we've got to be prepared a lot, and we have done and given training to our team. We have put in efforts in areas where we thought things would go great, and we have tried all of that, and we have learned a lot from it. So one of those biggest challenges that we face of keenness is how to become masters of what we do. And we try to create that. And I am sure with the kind of growth and the scalability of the team that we have and the team that is there, we're all in for it. And we will climb this mountain one way or the other as a unit. So that has been one of our big challenges so far.
Yeah, I think especially when you are scaling up every day, and when you're in the process of building the culture, it's always set that don't just make or decide what your values are in one way, because it's a process that you need to process in yourself and then start noting down those things and then decide whether this is the right thing or not. Because once it is stamped and you start going to the people, there are a lot of stories that you need to tell. There are a lot of examples that you need to tell. And once it is communicated, it stays for a longer period of time. Like, of course, culture does change because of your scale, but it is not something that changes every year. Right? You need a lot of efforts to cascade it down to the organization. Now, I'm going to ask you a little bit of hard question, which might make you uncomfortable. So if you don't want to answer, it's absolutely fine. So when we talk about culture is how you do things, right? In a particular case. But how do you do things in your religion is your culture of religion. How do you do things in your family is the culture of your family. Similarly, how do you do things in a company is the culture of the company. Right? What is acceptable to do, what is not acceptable to do is the culture, how it's formed in the company. And it's also said that the values, right? When we say that you have actually lived the values, is when nobody's watching. When you are supposed to take a decision, nobody's watching you, and you take a decision based on value. And of course, most of the time, nobody watching CEO. You're still watching other employees, but nobody watching CEOs when they are taking decisions. I know there are certain things in your mind that these are the values of Saffron. Have you ever taken a decision that is against the values of the company in your whole maybe since the starting till now that you think that that was a decision that was against the values of the company that I took?
No, I can't remember. I think we made a huge change or a couple of, I think 4 years back when we decided, like I was saying, like you want to make a shift and we have certain mentors and something. I think one of the uh, biggest factor that we wanted to do was when we were trying to become masters, we hit a point where we weren't able to grow to an extent, and we tried everything internally, externally we have. Uh, I would not say it was against some of the values, but we had to take a very rock solid decision where we said, some of the uh, people who were working on those goals, they've been with us for so long. We had to take certain uh, tough calls, but they were not personal calls. They were the calls that the business needed, and those calls did bring a huge disruption because we do not have team leaders in the company. So imagine if you don't have many team leaders and you still want to make sure that you get success. I think that has been a tough call for us. But we stood by it and believed that we will go through this, and the result has been great. Uh, so while that decision has been tough, I don't think we dismantled any of our values. We did not go against the values, but I think we reminded ourselves that personal thinking about those values is not greater than what the company's values are.
Mhm.
In order to be justice to the company, you want to hold and take a position on those values, which might look that they are against some set of team, set of services that we are doing, but they're doing justice to the company. So I think that is what we did. That's what I can call as one of the
Yeah, I would say that's not definitely not an example where you have gone against the values. And the reason why I would say that is that I think to safeguard the values and the culture of the message, you need to take those tough decisions. And a great example, and I think to our audience that is a lesson that many a times to safeguard the values and the culture of the nation. If you need to take tough decision, you should take those tough decisions because if you don't, I think spoil the values and culture of the organization.
Yeah.
And that reminded me another example that one of the organization had this values called respect to each other.
Yeah.
And one of the employees asked a question to the CEO and saying that when you say respect, but you're firing people the other side, right? And I love the answer that CEO has given. And he said that I think I'm being respectful to them while firing them. Because if they are not performing to what the company wants, and I just keep them on board, and my perception about them is very bad, do you think they will ever grow in the company? I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying they are not fit to our company for the role. They might be awesome superstars somewhere else, so they should find somewhere else where they fit more than staying in my company. So I'm being respectful by telling them, giving them this feedback. But if they're not listening, it's important for them to be out and find their own path. And I'm sure they must be doing great things. And I think that's really great. Being respectful does not mean that you just be goody-goody all the time. It's also about taking those decisions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Great. Last quick questions to you. How do you see the Saffron's culture in next 3 to 5 years, and how are you preparing for that?
So right now we are looking at some of the three values that for you are part of our culture. We're looking at agility, we're looking at mastery uh, as a main pillars. Why we look at it, I think it's going to be tough for us to incorporate those cultures, and we would need the entire help of our HR team, our team leaders to incorporate that. And the challenge is not only mine. I think it's gonna be of the entire team to pick that. And we are going to go through those tough times when you don't want to work hard, you not feel great, or certain challenges are so much because you're not competing only for yourself, you're competing with an outside world. And that challenge is something that is going to be something that we'll take on head on, and the team that is going to be prepared for it will be able to sustain and grow with us. So, a couple of things that we do is that it's a town hall which is very transparent about what we do, etc. Then we've got interventions from these mentors. We also have interventions on the HR side to make sure this is done. And I think we're doing a transformation, and I'm very happy out of the period we have. This challenge would also require a lot of communication. So we have to continuously communicate. I think we have to communicate it every single time that we are speaking to our team. I think that is something which is not easy. Sometimes you keep on saying the same thing. People come, it becomes deaf to the ears, right? Like you do it in your family, in company, you keep on saying that. You've got to make certain actions and plan those actions so that even when that culture is, you want to communicate that culture, it is not only through words, but through certain actions. And by actions, it could be anything like training people respectfully in areas that they want to become masters of, speaking to them very openly about what are the areas that they would like to do and does it involve anything that we country want to incorporate, and taking those decisions, spending on those decisions is very important. So we have thought about the ways we want to communicate not verbally but through actions as well. And I think that is how we're going to take on the challenge. And plus, we like to keep ourselves credible to what we do, and hopefully we'll become very got challenges that are coming our way.
Awesome. And I think we have the plan in your mind. It's
Yes.
And I'm sure your team member will definitely support. And I think you said a very key point. It's not only about what the leadership of the company is thinking about the culture, but it's also about how you involve others, because the culture is not an individual. It is the whole organization, not the one who are here today, but the one who will be coming in future as well. So all the best to Saffron for this. It's a kind of a very short answer from you is, if you have to describe Saffron culture in one word, what would that be and why? A little more.
Yeah. If I have to describe Saffron in one word, I think it will be change. We love changing a lot. And like I said, we were changing a lot at one point of time. And whenever I see the Saffron, I'm always looking at what is next. What do we do next? Every year we come up with new challenges. If you ask me to keep, they're always running around like, hey man, we have to take this on. So the first thing that I see about Saffron is that we're very pro towards change, and the change is for growth. But the change is not for us to impact anybody individually or team or the company in any negative way, but change that would help. So I think that is what I see every single day when I get up. Saffron has a change, and we want to make a change to the world as well. So whatever we're doing is going to influence not only us but our customers. They might have even the markets. Yeah. So this is what I feel. If there was any word that I would describe, Saffron would change.
Yeah, I think the world is changing. The way the technology is changing, the economy is changing, the political, geopolitical, a lot of things are changing. Yeah. We can't just sit and say we will do the same thing which we have been doing. And I think that's really true. And change is not for the sake of change, but just to make sure that we're making the impact and creating the values for our customers as well. Really, really awesome. Last question before we wrap up this. Sure. One is, what does Incredible Workplace certification mean to you, and how this kind of certification helps you in your journey of building the culture?
I think we wanted to make sure that our team and everybody's paid, and we could not be judging ourselves to do it. And I think what Incredible Works did is to be an outsider, come into our company, really speak to our team, really figure out what are the challenges, how we're feeling. And I think you always need somebody from outside to tell you what's going on, to tell you on your face what what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. I think Incredible Works is a great company to show that where we stand, where are we in the scorecard, what we need to improve. And I think that is going to make a huge impact towards what we want to achieve. So when we know what we have to do in order to make our people and our company happy, I think that's the kind of impact that Incredible Work brings. And it is something that I truly believe that every company should have someone from outside to really tell them how things are going. Because we could always talk great stuff about ourselves, but somebody from outside can always help you see what's going on. So I think it's going to be really get back not only for us, but for every company that you guys would get into and speak to them.
And thank you very much. And I think there are a lot of interventions that we as an organization are doing right now with multiple organizations and very different level, because we also as a company believe that the work culture differs from the level you are at, and the intervention that you need also differ from where you are at.
Right.
A couple of weeks back, we were showing. So this is I'm talking about a platinum certified company, which actually does employee surveys also, and then they actually asked us to also do a report of the survey. So they got both the case study, the employee survey, and then analysis of it. They were blown away with the outcome, and many a times I feel that leaders know what it is. Right?
Yeah,
it's not that they will be getting surprised; they are blown away because some of the things are basically a real testimony of what they were thinking, and there were a couple of things they had no.
Yeah.
Now it's up to them, of course, to take actions on those. But I echo your thought that I think there are steps that companies to take in. Having an Incredible Workplace certification is a step towards that, and at least an acknowledgement that you really want to invest in the work culture. Really. So it was a very, very good conversation, Vibhu, and I think you spoke your heart. And I think this conversation of your whole journey and what do you think about culture, and being honest about it, because sometimes it's not always good thing going in culture is something which is like every day you are doing something or maybe you're planning. But I think what this podcast does, and to my audience, is that culture is not something that you start thinking in your 1,000 organization, right? I think it is harder at that point in time. Yeah. You should start thinking now, because it is easier, whether you're 40 people, 50 people, 100 people, it is easier now to be thoughtful about it and start, implementing or cascading it down, as opposed to when you're 1,000 people company, because then it becomes much harder to cascade it down to. So all the best to you, to Saffron, and thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you very much.
All right, so this was Vibhu with us, the CEO of Saffron Tech, sharing his journey and his experience and honest views on what the culture looks like today and what is his thought on the culture that will come up in Saffron. With that said, thank you very much. This was the podcast, The Culture Beat by Incredible Work.